Okay. Are you in touch with Richard Wolff?
I have sent him an email. He hasn't answered. I reviewed his book on Amazon just yesterday, and I'm going to send him another email. And I've already sent an email to Eric Liu. But the bottom line with both of these guys is they'll answer when I can send them a check for $20,000 each.
Gotcha. Well, I know that Richard Wolff is a very smart guy, and I learned a lot
Don't let him.
from his
Don't let him
lecture.
scare you. Don't let him scare you. And
Well,
I
I
really
just
want
wish.
to. I want to say to you very clearly. This all this Marxism and communism stuff. That's just cosmetic chatter. What really matters is the issue of who makes the decisions about how we use our labor and the surplus value from our labor. And the answer for me and for Wolf is you should be making those decisions, no one else.
I agree. I just wish you would use the word fascism because I do believe that we are living in a fascist economy.
Well, we are, and the answer to that fascist economy is not Marxism and not communism. It's democracy. In fact, I was just thinking I'm going to publish. I'm going to redo and publish my graduate thesis on revolution. And here's the title that I've written down. It's called "On Revolution: A Populist Manifesto for Decentralization and Liberty."
Okay, hey, we're saying the words like decentralization, and I think that's the things that people need to hear. We're dealing with a centralized authority that's infected the government and can basically controls many aspects of our lives. So. Uh,
Centralization and secrecy are toxic.
mhm. And you talk a lot about that in the Open Source Everything Manifesto, and I urge people to read that. I had to read it twice just to get a firm grasp on it, but I think you've pretty well laid out a blueprint for intelligence uh, dispersion as well as gathering.
Yeah, well, and let me make a point to you. There's an open source ecology. And one of the things people don't understand is if you have open data by itself, what you're really doing is you're just giving your data to corporations that will then force you to buy proprietary software in order to take advantage of that data. You have to have this open source ecology that includes open source software, open source hardware, open data, open cloud, open spectrum. David Weinberger has written some wonderful stuff. Basically, we should not be selling the airwaves. The airwaves should be free. They should be open.
Dude, what do you
So
think of the
what we
new
have right now
FCC
is
ruling?
what's that?
I said, what do you think of the new FCC ruling or
I
whatever they've
think it's
done?
cosmetically beautiful. I think that the secret provisions in the legislation are terrible and we cannot trust the government.
Okay. Uh, what what do you can you explain the 5% congressional kickback? I've been meaning to ask you this
Sure.
because I hear this in a lot of your talks and I want to explain
Right.
this to people, but I don't know how to do that.
This is very simple. First off, the tax code. It's two different things. One is earmarked contracts or corporate welfare, and the other is the tax code. I never understood why the tax code was such a mess until one day I was having a discussion with a congressional staffer, and I suddenly realized, in hearing them explain it, the tax code is how Congress blackmails business. The tax code is how Congress puts up these things where it says it's going to tax this or that or whatever. And then someone has to come in and say, we'll put 5% of what we would have to pay in taxes into your political action committee if you'll give us an exemption.
Right.
And it happens. Now, with earmarked contracts, where Lockheed or Boeing or these other guys, they get contracts to build things that we don't need and
Right.
things that don't work. Okay. The F 22 and the F 35 are criminal conspiracies. They are treasonous pieces of crap that should never, ever be funded by the taxpayer.
Yeah.
But they're built in every congressional district, and every congressman gets a 5% kickback, okay, for the portion that's in his district. And that
Okay.
5% kickback is what he uses to campaign on. So it's a very dirty, dirty system, and I certainly encourage your viewers and listeners to look up Chuck Spinney and Winslow Wheeler. They're two of the greatest patriots who have been revealing waste, fraud, and abuse in the Pentagon for a very, very long time. Now, I also want to make another comment because I was watching CPAC the other night, and I liked 60 to 70% of what Rand Paul said. I liked zero of what Donald Trump had to say, which was nothing at all. And most of the other guys were just pontificating fools, including Scott Walker. What we have is a Department of Defense that is 45 to 75% waste. I will tell you with absolute certainty that if we had an honest team in charge of the Department of Defense, not only could we cut 30% of the Department of Defense budget, which is what Chuck Hagel was trying to do and what President Obama asked Chuck Hagel to do. But Mike Vickers and Ash Carter would not allow him to do that. Okay, we can cut 30% of that budget, and we can create a 450 ship Navy instead of a 280 ship Navy. We can create a long-haul Air Force that is capable of delivering one full-up U.S. Army division a week anywhere on the globe. And we can create an air mobile army, and we can close all of our overseas bases, every single one of them, because the 450 ship Navy with the long haul Air Force gives us the global reach without putting all those targets and without putting all of that money into foreigners' pockets. Okay.
So we could do that and cut about 30% of the budget. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I would bet my life on it.
And the reason why we're not doing that is because obviously the military-industrial complex needs us to spend that money.
Well, look, what you have to understand is that the kickbacks to Congress and the profit of the military-industrial complex are based on how much we spend, not on what we produce.
Right.
You know, William Binney has said the same thing about the intelligence community.
Right.
The intelligence community does not produce intelligence. The intelligence community is a secret pork pie. And Binney at Hackers on Planet Earth, when we spoke together in different sessions, he said, and this was really brilliant, and I've remembered it ever since, he said the intelligence community is in the business of keeping the problems alive in order to keep the money moving. ISIS is theater funded by Saudi Arabia, trained by CIA to scare the taxpayer into letting us spend money on stupid things that we don't need. ISIS is about as threatening as a lightning strike.
Yeah, I try to tell people that, you know, not only is Saudi Arabia funding ISIS, but the United States government is openly passing bills in Congress to fund these radicals or the Free Syrian Army in Syria, and that's just a conduit for getting these arms into the hands of ISIS. And our soldiers will be killed by weapons that the taxpayer bought and paid for.
Well, this is where we went wrong. When the Soviet Union fell apart, the military-industrial complex realized that it could not keep its profits alive unless we got into the global arms business. And so every threat that is represented to the public is actually a false threat, and it's there for one reason and one reason only, which is to support the United States sale of arms or gift of arms. Because a lot of times what the taxpayer doesn't realize is that we're paying for the arming of dictators. Ambassador Mark Palmer wrote a wonderful book called Breaking the Real Axis of Evil. And in it, he makes 2 points. The first point is that of the 44 dictators on the planet, the United States government, in our name, is arming and subsidizing and best pals with 42 of them. The only 2 we don't like are Cuba and North Korea. Now, I love Cuba. I think Cuba, I want to see Ernest Hemingway's house. I want to see Cuban beaches, and I want to see all those beautiful Cuban old cars. You know, the president of Mexico was asked by the president of the United States one day why he wouldn't join the United States in declaring Cuba a threat. And he said, if I declared Cuba a threat, 40 million Mexicans would die laughing.